I'm a dual presenter with Janine Taylor on Knowing Me, Knowing You, and how important self-awareness is, not just for females in firefighting and emergency services, but for everyone. It helps you with all your relationships. So I call your personality the bottom line of diversity, the first layer of diversity. Everyone is different, and we must respect that, and we must respect each other. So learning about our class teachers about being an introvert, being an extrovert, and how different those two people, that's just one of the types, how different those two people interact, engage, communicate, think, process. So if you can understand, one, what you are and how you do all of those things, and then two, what other people are, you can recognise the gap. So for an example, I'm an extreme extrovert and my co-presenter is an extreme introvert. So I think out aloud and I talk while I'm doing things where she needs quiet time. So knowing that, we can, instead of frustrating each other and causing confusion, and which can turn to ugly, which can cause workplace conflict, I allow her that time, and she allows me to ramble and switches off. So when workplace conflict occurs due to sexual orientation or gender, it mightn't be about that. It might be about a personality type, and understanding that can afford you the space, and what we call is mind the gap. So that gap between the difference in you and the difference in me is what can cause that conflict. So that's what we talk about. Having Katarina Carroll as our commissioner and come across from QPS has been absolutely fantastic for our organisation. Organisations in fire and emergency services across the world have less than 1% of executive positions. We're very lucky in Queensland Fire and Emergency Services. We have 2 female senior officers and a female commissioner. She has brought with her a wealth of experience from 32 years in the police force. So she's had the same experiences. It was 4% women when she joined the police force. We currently sit at approximately 4%. So she understands what we're going through. Where men are willing, they have empathy for us, a really true male champion of change, she understands the plight. She's been there. So she comes with fresh ideas. She comes from a different background, so she sees things differently and is bringing about change. She's not just talking about it, she's actually making it happen. I think lateral transfer is absolutely brilliant. We don't want in our organisation, in any organisation, if you went across to Woolworths, they don't want people that have just been in the deli, or we don't want people that have just had a linear movement through their organisation. You need to experience, other cultures, travel, other ways of doing things, because we know that once you hang around the same, you get groupthink. So having those opportunities to go elsewhere. I've had an opportunity to go across to QPS myself, which is Queensland Police Service, brings about a whole different way of looking at problems and coming up with solutions. Katarina's drive is all about leadership, understanding with people, because that is what our organisation is built on. So there is a whole body of work around building that leadership team strategically to be able to open up and move information up, down and sideways, which has opened up just so much information flow where people were afraid to speak out before. And this isn't just a gender issue, this is males who have been suppressed because they're slightly different for years, now can have the opportunity to have their voice. It's also opened up, once you get a diverse organisation, being, women, LGBTI community, our Indigenous population, people from elsewhere, everyone feels safe, that they can come and join us. It's not, once you start opening the doors, everyone sees that it's safe. So with that brings a wealth of knowledge. We're more reflective of the community that we serve. And as a saying that we have is, if they can see us, they can be us. So therefore, we're getting more of the community coming up and talking to us. My vision for the fire service is where we're not having these conversations anymore. That 20 years in the service, I'm still having the same conversation about how do we get diverse, how do we increase gender equality and all that. I see in 20 years' time a service which has at least 30% of women, that it is just the norm to see a female firefighter, that every little girl and every little boy says firefighter and not fireman. I have a few stepping up and standing out stories. I was one of the first female firefighters in my organisation, but one of the ones that most resonates with me is becoming the first female station officer, so the first female to take control of an appliance, where I really had to join in. No other females had ever tried to do, and it's a year-long exam. It's excruciating. They really put you through your paces and pass a final exam where you're being judged by a panel of not only that, but your peers who are there give you the judgment on the day. And I stood out. I was in the top, 5% of my class, so it really put the effort in. And the thing that I would love junior firefighters to take home with them, whether it's male or female, is believe in yourself, because have command presence. Know that you are capable of doing the job, because you are, and that self-doubt is what kills us every single time. Just go for it, because you'll do it, and then you'll wonder why it ever took you so long to step up and stand out. A story about a female firefighter. I have one right at the moment who is she's a junior firefighter. She has 4 children. She has recently become a single mum, and she came to me with for some advice and said, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I think it's getting too hard. I'm thinking about quitting. And my advice to her was, look, you need to stop and think about it. The organisation will afford you any opportunity to rest, go on day work if you have to, and let's look at our options. Before you make any rash decisions, good, bad or indifferent, we really need to stop and take a breath, okay? She really needed to count her blessings at that time. She was feeling really low and doubting everything. She had one constant in her life, and it was her job. Okay, and her children. So she needed to take care of both of those. So the good thing is she went on day work for a while and got her head together and the external life together, and now came back happy, healthy, has everything managed, and is back, fighting fires. What she wanted to do, she didn't really want to quit ever, but that's what she thought her option was. So I thought that was a really good, one of, a male would never think to, okay, my children are here, I need to stop or start, where that really affects, it really impacts women in firefighting and emergency services. When I was a station officer, I got sexually harassed at work by a male firefighter, and from that, and I'm not one to step down and take that, so I use the appropriate channels to tell people, and a lot of girls don't come forward to tell those stories. From that, I received several threats from family members of this male firefighter, but stood my ground and had, out of that dark patch came so much support from my male firefighters, and the people that believed in me and knew that I was in the right gathered behind me, rallied behind me and helped me through. So my advice is, when you go through a dark patch, you need to make sure that you've got that support, and they are there, and our male champions of change are there. We just need to activate them sometimes because they're a little slow. Are fire services doing enough? Look, everyone is talking about doing it. There are very few actions put into words, which is quite upsetting. And they are meeting roadblocks. Unfortunately, a lot of it is still being talked about, but it is hard to put into action, and it is going to take time to put these things into action. We really need to engage with our unions more across the board to make sure that they're on board and see the positives of having diverse workforces. Until you actually spell it out to some people, they don't recognise it. So where effort is being put in by services, and we're not the only one, Queensland's not the only ones that are moving forward in the right direction, they're being thought by unions and naysayers that can't see the benefits. So if we keep moving and we keep talking about it, that's the key. Don't drop the ball, don't stop the conversation, and make sure that we keep protecting, empowering and supporting our women who who are in the job. A lot has changed because we don't let the conversation go, and it's the right thing to do. And now we don't just have the women on board, we have our leaders on board, we have our politicians on board, we have support from outside the organisation that we've never had before. I mean, everyone loves firefighters, and now they realise that, okay, this isn't a man's world. We can play in this space and we can do well, and we bring a whole heap of talents to the table that men just don't. So now that everyone is engaged, and the more people we activate, the better it's going to be, the quicker it will happen. I mean, 30 years ago, you never heard of a policewoman. It was a policeman, a policeman. Now you only hear police officer. That's where I want to be, but I want to do it in half the time.